What's your biggest retirement question? Whatever it is, you'll find answers here. It's time for Ease into Retirement.
Welcome into Ease into Retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California. Now, if you're tuning in to Right on the Money, that's the same show. We just did a little bit of name change. Tom was telling me this used to be the show name, and we're going back to it. So very cool to be a part of that transition back. So again, this is Ease into Retirement. And as always, if you got questions or need some help, nothing there has changed. All you got to do is reach out to Tom and his team of all-star advisors at 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600 to get started today with your complimentary written retirement blueprint. Tom, my friend, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Glad to be back to Ease into Retirement. Really, we had that name for a long time, Mark, and used it on the radio just a little bit. And then we got with a group and they said, well, you should Right on the Money's a lot better. But we've got Ease into Retirement. It's trademarked. It's our process. We've got it on the wall in our office and everything.
Oh, okay.
And I was talking to some of the people who are helping us with TV and radio now, and they said, that Ease into Retirement, it puts it out there that we really do focus on people who work in retirement and to make sure their money lasts as long as they do, and they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes. That's our mantra as to what we really are here for, those two things. So we decided to go back to Ease into Retirement. Now, the hardest person in the world for Ease into Retirement might be you, Mark, because you are so good at giving the title of our show every time. So I'll help you. I'll be here, and hopefully I'll catch it if we ever go back and say Right on the Money.
I appreciate it.
So from now on, we're going to call ourselves Ease into Retirement because that's back home.
All right. Well, there's nothing like being back home. And so glad to have you guys listening to the show today. And thanks for hanging out with us as we talk about various different things in the financial services world. So we're going to dive in and kick things off this week. Tom, let's talk about some tips for natural savers. Many retirees and pre-retirees who achieved a high net worth, didn't get there as a result of having, a huge income. Maybe they did, right? Or just from selling a business. But they've also a lot of times done a good job of keeping debt low and staying within their means, things of that nature. But even if you've done a really good job across the board, there's still a lot of other things that could catch you. So let's talk about some problems faced by people, again, who even maybe think, hey, I'm in good shape. I don't need to see an advisor because I've saved really well. So let's just talk about some things that might, be some potholes if you're not careful, right? So too much in cash, for example, it feels good. It looks good, makes you smile to see a certain number in the bank, but is it the best thing?
It's just sitting there in the bank.
That's right.
It's sitting there in the bank. Nobody's bothering it. My dad had that mantra. He would always say, I've got X amount of dollars. In fact, Mark, he had $92,000 in $100 bills when he passed away, sitting in a safety deposit box.
Oh, okay. So literally in the bank, but not in the bank account.
It was literally in the bank in Bank of America on Roof Snow Drive in Watauga, Texas. I'll never forget counting that $92,200. And he would always tell me, he said, son, if it's in the bank, I'm not losing money. But he was losing purchasing power.
Yeah.
Even at 3% inflation. If you've got $1 million at 3% inflation, 20 years later, if you just put that in a brown paper sack in the Watauga, bank, the Bank of America in Watauga, Texas, then 20 years later, that purchasing power has gone from $1 million that it would buy for you right now. It's gone down to $550,000, and that's only at 3% inflation. So, people just sit around with too much cash sometimes, and there's several reasons, okay? Number one, and I want to say this because I think I fit into this category, and I'm going to say it and get off of it. I think people who sometimes grew up poor, and they didn't have a lot of marginal money. They just like to have a lot of marginal money, and they like to have that money sitting in the bank so they can get their hands on it.
Oh, yeah.
The second thing is, I think people who remember the 70s and the early 80s when you used to be able to get, like 15% on your CDs and 10% on your money market in the bank. The banks haven't paid that for a long time, but we got used to having a lot of money. There used to be a sort of a mantra or a rule that would say, hey, you need 6 months of income put away in savings in the bank, but for 30 years, we didn't make any money doing that. So people who are used to having a lot of money in the bank just for savings. And then the third category would be business owners, because business owners, I get it. I am one. I relate to that, accusation. And a lot of times we have fluctuating income. The commissions come in really strong some months and not so strong. So we like to keep a lot of money in cash. And if you've been a business owner and then you go into retirement, you sold the business, you're out of the business, but you still have that habit of keeping tons of money in the bank. So one discussion you might need to have is, how much do I have in the bank that's not really working for me right now? And good savers, people who've lived on less than what they've earned, people who are out of debt, people who've invested that money consistently, good savers run into that disease sometimes. They just have too much money sitting in cash.
And we do think fondly of the CD rates at 12 or 14 or 15%, but we also forget that your mortgage was probably 15 or 16% too in that time period.
15.4. I remember my first mortgage. I was so happy to get that and went to church and bragged about it. And some other guys got mad at me because they got 17.2 or something like that. Yeah, we were happy to do that. So all these kids who are out there crying about a 6% mortgage or maybe a little north of there, I don't feel sorry for them at all. I wish it was lower, but I don't feel sorry for them.
Yeah. The problem is the price of the homes, right, have gotten so crazy.
Exactly.
That's really the trouble too. But so that's one place, right? So another place, Tom, is it's just too much risk in general. Obviously, this is the opposite of the person with too much cash. But you could have a broken risk meter, and especially when the market's doing well, because, we all suffer from that FOMO, that fear of missing out. We want to, be getting those good gains as they're rolling in, right? But you could be a little overexposed there.
And get off my back, Mark. I've had that money in that 401k for 40 years, and it's grown like crazy.
I know, but
I'm appreciative of it. And 40 years ago, you could have made up a 50% downturn like we've had two since the year 2000. You could have done that pretty easily. You need to know your risk level. And a lot of people, when they come in, we offer to everybody who listens to this show, watches us on television, and anytime you come to our seminars, anytime you make contact with us, we offer you a free retirement blueprint, a complimentary blueprint that we'll put together, and we'll look through. And one of the key things we do about 8 different analysis. Let me say it the right way, okay? We do those about 8 different things we'll run on you, and one of them is a risk level. What risk level is your portfolio? And sometimes people are in retirement where they can't afford to lose a lot. They don't have a very big risk capacity, the ability to lose a lot of their money. They don't want to lose what they've worked all their life to gain, but they're taking maybe 90% of the risk of the market or 100%, and they don't need to take that.
Or don't even know it sometimes.
They don't even know it. It's like high blood pressure. It's the silent killer. Right. It's the risk level that you're taking and you don't know, because there's not much in a 401k, and it's always been very good to you because it's made you money. So you're still taking too much risk. When you enter retirement, you need to know 3 risk scores. You need to know your risk capacity. How much can I afford to lose? Okay. Number 2, you need to know your portfolio's risk score. How much is it at risk compared to the market? And number 3, you need to know your risk tolerance. And I pound on your chest at that point and I say, how much inside can you sleep at night with? How much can you just have that ability to sleep well at night because you know you're not taking too much risk and you don't have all your money out there on the limb, and you're sawing on the limb, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. And I giggled there because you're talking about the high blood pressure, and Tom and I were joking before we got started here today. I had just come in from the cardiologist and was getting yelled at for my high blood pressure and something else, so that made me kind of chuckle when he said that. But yeah, it's definitely a silent killer, and risk can be that silent thief to your portfolio. So you want to make sure that you're taking that into account. Even if you're a good saver, get yourself on the calendar. Have a conversation with Tom and his team of all-star advisors at 855-526-1600. Tom, if you've been saving well, you got that partner. The partner's waiting on their cut. So you got that tax time bomb waiting.
Yeah, even if let's say you've got a pension, you've got rentals, you've got really healthy Social Security, you got the house paid off, and you say, well, a lot of people come in and they say this. They say, well, we don't really have to tap into our IRAs or our 401k because we've got enough cash flow without it. Well, guess what? The government doesn't have enough cash flow unless you pay tax on it. So you're going to have to start paying tax on it. And it's called required minimum distributions. And people come in, they're so confused on the age it starts right now because some people come in and say, isn't that 70 and a half? Isn't it 72? Isn't it 73? Isn't it 75?
They're all right at some point.
They're all right at some age. They really are. Right now, it's if you're 73 right now or older, you've got to take required minimum distributions. I'll tell you what that means. They're required. There's a minimum, and you got to distribute it out of your IRAs and your 401ks. And it's not a percentage. If your advisor's saying, well, just take 4%, that doesn't work because it's never a percentage. It's always a factor that you divide into that. We have a big RMD party coming up actually next week. And we've got about 250 of our clients coming in, and we make sure that everybody's taking their RMDs, because if you don't take the right amount, there's a 25% penalty. It's a tax bomb. You've got to take it. It's going to explode on you if you're not careful. So you need to make sure you're working with an advisor who addresses taxes. Now, let me tell you one website to go to that I've developed. It's easemytaxburden.com. That's EASE, mytaxburden.com. You can go on there. You can punch in how much you've got in that IRA and 401k. You can punch in your marginal tax rate, and it'll tell you what you potentially could pay in taxes on that 401k. And I want to tell you, when you get the number, be sitting down because it'll shock you.
Yeah. So go to easemytaxburden.com. Again, easemytaxburden.com. And we'll wrap up this segment, Tom, with, don't forget, if you're a good saver and you've been doing all the right things and blah, 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 it's okay to live a little, right? Enjoy it a little bit. Some people, and I get it, right? If you spent 40 years saving, you get to that, retirement, year, that first year, that transition period, you're thinking, I don't want to spend any money. We hear that time and time again. People are afraid to enjoy it, but that's why you did it, right?
Yep.
So live a little.
It's hard to turn that worm around and then start spending. And then the hardest people to spend their money in retirement are the ones who were the best savers. Maybe they didn't inherit $1 million or $2 million from parents, and they didn't have that job where they were making $500,000 a year. And you'd look at what they made in salary. A lot like my mom and dad, they never made very much in salary, but we never went out to eat. We very seldom did we ever go out to eat. Mom even made some of the clothes we wore. Gosh, I hated that. But Mom did some of those kind of things and worked really hard. My dad sometimes worked 2 jobs. He was a pastor, but he'd also pick up different side jobs, and they saved and they invested in things, and land and property and motorhomes and things. And, when it all got down and when it all was done, they had a ton of money. And they had saved it, but then it was hard for them to let go of that and start spending it and enjoying it. And I kept telling them, Mom and Dad, you need to use this. You need to use this. You need to use this. And did they? Absolutely not. They left it to my brother and me. And I'm thankful for it, but I wish they had spent it. So I want to tell you, it's okay to live a little. You got to make sure you don't have too much cash. Make sure your risk level, that risk level. Know what your taxes are going to be, but go live. Go enjoy it. You want to go on an African safari? Get on the plane. I mean, go do it, because you're never going to be this young again, and you're never going to have this kind of money again.
Well, and one of the things you need to do is to make sure you got the right strategy and plan in place for you. And you can get that complimentary written retirement blueprint with the team of all-stars at Mosley Wealth Management by simply calling 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600 to visit with them in one of their offices in Anaheim, Arcadia, Encino, Ontario, San Diego, and of course, over Zoom if you'd like to do that as well. But you got to call to make that happen. 855-526-1600. This is Ease Into Retirement, and there's more to come after this. Back here for more of Ease Into Retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California. He's got 30 plus years of experience in the financial sector, and he's got a team of all-star advisors and an amazing support staff here to help you get yourself to and through retirement, this thing we call retirement, this journey that we all hopefully eventually get on, right? So get yourself on the calendar, come on in for that consultation and review. That written complimentary retirement blueprint is yours by simply calling 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600. 855-526-1600 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600 to get started today. And you can also visit Tom's tax website as well. We were just talking about that in the prior segment, easemytaxburden.com. That's easemytaxburden.com. All right, Tom, let's have a little fun. I'm going to put you on the spot here. We're going to do some financial fortune cookies, and because they love to give advice, and you do a great job of turning different things I toss at you into a fun little financial wisdom, even if that was not what the intended purpose of the cookie would be.
Okay, I got a question for you before we get started, though.
Okay.
When you do go to restaurants and eat Chinese food, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You do get fortune cookies.
Correct.
Do you open the fortune cookie and read the fortune and then not eat the cookie? Or do you eat the cookie?
I think I usually take a bite to see if it's stale.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because a lot of times they are.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. I just wondered. I just wondered as we were preparing this.
Yep.
Do you eat that fortune cookie? I eat it every time, whether it's stale or not. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And if you've never had one and you're curious about what sugared cardboard tastes like, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So all right. Well, let's have some fun. I'm going to give you some fortunes. Okay, that we might find in a cookie.
Okay.
And then you turn it into some financial wisdom for us, all right? So we're going to start very fortune cookie-esque with this first one, Tom. Crisis is opportunity riding on a dangerous wind. Sounds very nice, very fancy.
Yeah, think of old Warren Buffett.
Okay.
And he talks about being fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. It seems like everybody operates the market backwards.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go buy cars and you found out that cars were selling at higher than they've ever sold before, you'd probably think, well, let me ride this one out and go do it a little bit later. But when the market starts going up, there's such a greed factor that jumps in and you say, man, I want to get a part of that. I want to be a part of that. Look at Bitcoin. I mean, look at that thing, and you want to go jump in on it and take advantage of it at that time because it's sky high. And, very few people, it's a real test of how you are and your investment, your investment
ideology?
IQ. Yeah, okay. Ideology, IQ, whatever. When the market is down, do you look for things to invest? Do you look for opportunities to invest? Or when the market is up, do you look for things to invest? If you want to invest when the market's up, be careful. You might not be that sophisticated of an investor. But if you've got some dry powder along and you've collected some dry powder, that's money that you've got in cash that you're waiting for an opportunity. And that's what we're talking about here. Crisis is an opportunity riding on a dangerous wind. Crisis is an opportunity. And when that opportunity comes, if you've got all your money already invested, you don't have anything to take advantage of it. But if you've got some cash sitting over on the side and things go rock bottom, great time to jump in. The market, I cannot promise you, will always go back up. But I can tell you that historically, the market has always gone back up, to this point. So that's a pretty good indicator that if you've got time and you don't need that money really soon, don't get caught in the fear and greed opposites where, when the market's up, you've got greed and want to get in. When the market's down, that's the time to jump into the market.
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean, it's always going to have its little ebbs and flows, but so far, historically, it tends to keep going upwards. But time is important, so you got to have that strategy in place so you understand what your time horizon looks like as well. All right, good job. How about a feather in the hand is better than a bird in the air? Kind of similar to the bird in the bush kind of thing, but
yeah. Let me turn that into a football saying.
Okay.
At the end of the game, I'd rather be ahead. Okay.
Right.
You understand what I mean? If there's 2 minutes to go, even if the other team has the ball,
I'd rather have a 3-touchdown lead, right?
I'd rather have a 3-touchdown lead. I'd rather be ahead by 1 point because, there's just things that happen that, it just pays for you to be ahead. The Chargers ran into that this past weekend. They were down by 3, had the ball. Everybody thought, oh, wow, here they come. Got a great quarterback going to come from behind. And they lost by 3 because they even chart the quarterbacks by how many times they come from behind. And it's usually single digits. And if they're double digits, they might be Hall of Fame potential and stuff, because most of the time, if you're behind, you're going to stay behind, So that idea of protecting what you've got. And if you've got the lead, that's where you need to be. Now here's where I look at this, though.
Okay.
If I look at it like this, so many people enter into retirement and they're still, like we talked about in the first segment, they're taking too much risk. and they're still throwing the ball, if we want to bring the football illustration into it. They're still taking chances with their money. They're chasing shiny objects in many cases. I'd rather have a big chunk of money that I didn't have to make that much off of in retirement. All I had to do was play out the clock, so to speak. I just had to win the game. As you said, Mark, got a 3-touchdown lead. You don't need to score any more points. You just need to keep
right.
the enemy from scoring points, if you understand what I'm saying. So take the lead, take the feather in your hand, quit chasing things if you've got enough. Now, how do you decide if you've got enough? That's where you need the evaluations that we will go through when you call in. Some of you are sitting out there, and I know because you come in every week, you're sitting out there and you've been thinking for a year. How long is it? A year and a half? 2 years. We had one a couple of weeks ago. Said, I've been listening to Tom for 2 years. And they told my advisor when they came in, they said, we should have come in a long time ago. Well, today's the day you do what you should do. Okay. Pick
Yep.
up the phone and call us, and we can give you an evaluation. And the first thing you need to find out is this feather in my hand enough for me to make it? Or do I need to keep chasing more birds? If you want to go back to the fortune cookie, but you don't know that until you know that. And we can show you that, hey, here's where your income will come from. It'll take care of inflation. Here's where your investments likely should be. Here's what your tax burden's going to be. Here are your health issues that you might run into. And here's the legacy, how you leave it. That's a retirement blueprint. And one is there for you, just like we offer every single week. Some of you have been listening to that and saying, we need to go get that one, Myrtle. Well, pick up the phone, George, and call us, because you and Myrtle need to come in and we need to put one together for you.
There you go, 855-526-1600 to get your retirement blueprint. My mother-in-law, or I guess it would be my grandmother-in-law, my wife's grandmother, her name was Myrtle. So get on down.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
855-526-1600, 855-526-1600. You're doing a good job at these, Tom. So I'm going to give you a couple more here before we take a break, and we'll continue on with our financial fortune cookies. This one's great advice in the world in general, and as anybody who's an overthinker knows, like myself, if you accept something you cannot change, you will begin to feel better. I need to do more of that. I think we all probably do, but that's great advice.
Yeah, it's like what I think they call it, Mark, the serenity prayer, help
Right,
me
yep.
to accept the things I can't change the things I can, and know the difference.
That's right.
And
The wisdom to accept it. Yep.
yeah, you got to do that in life. You are where you are. Some of you won't call in to come in and get a retirement blueprint because you're scared and you're fearful of what you might find out. Some of you are afraid to go to the doctor right now because you've got those pains. I know, because we talk, hey, Mark, I've been doing this over 30 years now, okay? And
Yeah.
I've been working with people in retirement. And some of you are afraid to go to the doctor because you've got a pain and you're afraid what you might find out.
Yeah, the
from
bad news fear. Yeah.
the bad news fear. And you've got to accept where you are financially, physically, every single way. So, hey, let us know. Come in, bring your stuff. Let us look at it. We can give you a plan to get out. If you're in trouble, we can give you a plan to get out of it. And we can help you negotiate trouble. And we can help you do those things, because in 30 years of working with thousands of people, we've been there, done that. Not ourselves necessarily, but with other people. So, accept what you can't change and you'll feel better about it. But don't just sit there and feel better about it. Let's do something about it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because, Tom, the greatest danger could be your own stupidity. That's our next fortune cookie. I love that one.
Yeah, one of the dumbest sayings of all is, well, what you don't know won't hurt you. No, whether it's physical, like we just talked about, or financial, or a lot of other ways, what you don't know can destroy you. It really can. So don't stay in the unknown all your life. Get out of there. Get out of the stupidity. Get into something where you know. And wherever you are, we say this at every one of our events, wherever you are, we feel like we can help people. We feel like we can better you. And so let us help you. Come in, talk to us.
All right, Tom, let's do one more before we jump out and take a break. And I like this one as well. You're doing the financial fortune cookie here, and it says to you, don't let statistics do a number on you. How would you translate that?
I think this engineers, I'm not picking on you if you're an engineer, but most people, engineers, don't have a budget. You do. You've got one that's 6 Excel spreadsheets put together that you've taped together, and you can tell me how much money you're going to have if you live into the year 2189, and you're there. So don't get so bogged down in statistics and numbers, and linear numbers are a problem where you think you're going to get 4% a year every single year. There's all kind of numbers that can do you wrong. The fact of it is, you don't know what the future holds financially. You don't know what the stock market's going to do in the future. You need an all-weather plan that's going to take care of you if the sun shines or if it rains. The Arabs have a saying that says all sunshine makes a desert, and they should know. I promise you they should know. So it's never going to be all sunshine. You should have a plan that, you got all those numbers down, and it's like Mike Tyson's famous quote where he said, everybody's got a plan till you get hit in the mouth. And everybody's got a financial plan until they get hit in the mouth. So don't be paralyzed by the numbers that you've put together, and don't be afraid. The numbers are the numbers. It's back to what we said earlier, accept what you can't change. If the market changes drastically, you are where you are. Get a plan, get out of it. There are always ways you're going to survive. A book I'm reading right now by Mark Sparks, it's called They Can't Eat You. Okay. And it's just no matter what happens in business, nobody can eat you. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to come and start taking a bite out of your arm or a bite out of your leg. So continue to go on. You've survived other things. You're going to survive, the numbers if they go poorly on you, but you've got to have a plan that's an all-weather plan that'll help you in good times and bad times.
Yeah, because you want to make sure you have a strategy to know what's going on so that you can adapt hopefully sooner than later, and that's where the retirement blueprint can certainly come in. You may find out you're in great shape. Oftentimes people do, but if not, now you know what you need to start working on. So get that complimentary written retirement blueprint into place right now with Tom's team of All-Star Advisors at 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600. This is Ease Into Retirement, and we'll be back in just a minute. Back here for more of Ease Into Retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California. Get yourself onto the calendar. Come on in for that complimentary written retirement blueprint with his team of All-Star Advisors at 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600, or visit them online at mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's mosleywealthmanagement.com. There's a lot of good tools, tips, and resources there you can check out. Again, at MOSLEY, mosleywealthmanagement.com. And all right, Tom, we're going to continue having some fun here on the show this week. And did you ever watch that show, Mythbusters?
I did.
Yeah, great show. A lot of fun. They did some interesting stuff on there.
I still watch that thing.
It's good.
It's comes on one of those
Discovery or something.
Yeah, something like that. I forget which one it is, but I'll be flipping through the channels there and I'll look at. I still have cable. I don't stream everything. I'm too old to have just streaming. So I've got cable, and we stream a lot of stuff still. But yeah, I love Mythbusters. I really do.
Well, I'm going to let you become a Mythbuster on this episode or this segment. I'm going to give you a financial statement, and you can tell us if it's a myth and why. Okay. So you get to take the role of Jamie or the other Adam, the two guys on the show, and see which one see if you can prove these or bust these. So number one, shifting from stocks to bonds removes the volatility from your portfolio.
I'm going to sing a country music song for you. You ready?
All right. Yep.
I tell it like it used to be.
Nice.
Okay, because it used to be that you could shift from stocks to bonds and it would help your portfolio. Now, let's go back, like the Lone Ranger said, to those thrilling days of yesteryear. And let's look at what the stock market, maybe your 401k when they first started in the early 80s, you had like a 90-10 portfolio and an 80-20 portfolio and a 70-30, and you get to the 60-40. That's still a popular portfolio with some of the older versions of investments. And all that meant was the ratio of stocks to bonds. And the idea was, when you're young, man, go 90-10, because those stocks are going to run like a racehorse, and those bonds are going to just pay you that dividend, and it's going to help. The problem is, about 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when we did a thing called quantitative easing, and I don't want to get too deep into the financial theory here, but when we started, flooding the market with bonds to keep the financial markets afloat, especially around 2008, and they were putting billions of dollars of bonds into the system every single month. Bonds, because there's so many of them out there, that they've gone wacky for the last 15 or 20 years. And maybe they'll come back in the future, but bonds and stocks pretty much ride along somewhat many days the same way. Not always. You can't always make a blanket statement like that. But that 90-10 portfolio, 60-40 of stocks to bonds portfolio doesn't always work to lower volatility. I take you back just 3 years ago to 2022 when the market was down 22%, and every 401k portfolio that I evaluated, bonds were down and stocks were down, and usually over 15 to 20% in every category. So they more move together now many times than they do move opposite of each other. So you lose your volatility. Myth? Boom, it blows away on that one. That is definitely a myth that does not work.
All right, there you go. Good job with that first one. How about this one, Tom? Once you've retired, life insurance is no longer necessary. I feel like this is going to be the same thing. Like once upon a time, this might have been true.
Yeah, it might have been true, but maybe not. I mean, what do you want to leave? I mean,
Okay.
we focus on two things when it comes to estate planning. I've always told people in our estate planning workshops that so many people focus on what they want to leave so much that they forget what they're going to live off of. And so you've got to have a balance of both of those. Now, where does life insurance come in? Some of you bought that policy. Your mom and dad bought you that $50,000 policy, and oh my goodness, because of dividends and growth, it's up to $106,000. I just ran into one of those about 2 or 3 months ago when I was evaluating a policy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a dynamite policy for those people to keep. And, if you didn't have a mom and dad that bought you that policy when you were really young, I wish you had, because leaving tax-free money, which is the way life insurance proceeds pass to the beneficiary, is really a good thing. If you don't believe it, look at the IRA your parents left you with the tax burden, and look at the life insurance they left you with absolutely tax-free. So life insurance is still a good value. But here's the whole thing right there, Mark. You've got to know why you're getting into any product. Please listen closely here. You don't want to buy life insurance because it makes the life insurance salesman a fat commission, okay? You want to have debt that you don't want to leave to your family. You generally want to have pretty good health so you don't get rated really super high and you're paying through the teeth for it. Some of you have a Parent Plus loan that even in your 60s you're still carrying because your kid had to go to that party school and that party school was out of state, so you paid $60,000 a year and you ran up a $200,000 Parent Plus loan. You don't want to leave that as a burden. So that's going to have to be paid off sometimes. So sometimes people get a life insurance policy for something like that. Some of you still have a mortgage on your house and you don't want to leave your spouse. If you go first, you don't want to leave your spouse with that mortgage debt. So there's got to be a reason for the life insurance for it to be necessary. And then some of you just have a burn. Like here's one good idea. There's more than one good idea, I hope, on the program, Mark, but there's one good idea coming here.
Right.
Some of you do inherit an IRA from your parents. It's called a beneficiary or an inherited IRA. And you say, I don't need that money. I don't want that money. I'd like to pass it along to my children. Well, you have to take that money out over a 10-year period. What we like to do, if you're healthy, is we take the money out that you need to take out every year, 1/10 of it or so, and we pay the taxes on it. And then the money that's left, we just had one that was $12,000 a year. That $12,000, the person chose to put that into a life insurance policy over 10 years. So they're going to put that into a life insurance policy over 10 years, put $120,000 in it. They've got a death benefit on there of $380,000. That's tax-free to their children. They're going to leave it to their children. So you can turn that beneficiary IRA that you don't need. I think if you're healthy, it makes really good sense. Turn that into a life insurance policy for your kids or your grandkids, and they get it tax-free, not with a tax burden like you got it. So there's ways to make this thing work, to pass along from generation to generation, and life insurance could be one of those things that you use.
Yeah, they've changed a lot. It's not your daddy's Oldsmobile, if you remember those commercials, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So you're listening to Ease Into Retirement with Tom Mosley from Mosley Wealth Management, 855-526-1600. I'm making him a financial myth buster today, and he's explaining to us if these statements are myth or not. So let's do a couple more here, Tom. You'll need less income when you're retired than you did when you were working. Again, maybe once upon a time this was factual, but I think, we all know inflation's, much worse than it used to be, so that could change.
Well, it's not just inflation. People just keep spending.
Well,
they spend the same thing. If you've got a mortgage, you're going to spend the same for that mortgage in retirement. You've got a car payment. You say, well, I just bought a new Buick at 62 years old, and I'm 62 years old, and that's the last car I'll ever need. No, you're going to need another one down the road. So the reality is what you need to do is a budget worksheet or two. You need to do a budget worksheet for you before you retire and see what you're spending, and then translate that over into retirement and see what you're going to be spending there. You're going to be shocked. Most people spend at least 90% of what they were spending before retirement in retirement.
Yeah. So definitely a myth then.
Yes, definitely a myth.
All right. Tom, hit me with the taxes here. So financial myth, you will be in a lower tax bracket once you retire. This would be great. Like I've made this joke for a while. Tell me what you think about this. So it'd be awesome, like when you got to 65, kind of like the gold watch you used to get for retirement, if you just got automatically put in a lower tax bracket. But it doesn't happen automatically. Now, you might get there with planning, but... Mark,
yes. Wake up, buddy. No? You're dreaming.
Am I dreaming again? Okay.
Yeah. You're totally dreaming. Do you think at $37 trillion of debt that they're really going to do that to? Probably... I
know. I said it would be great, but it doesn't happen, right?
Mark, wake up.
All right, I'm awake. All right, wake me up, Tom.
I love it. No, really, you always think that, I'll be in a lower. In fact, that was the 401k lie. Put the money away now because you're making all this money, and when you get to retirement, you'll be in a lower tax bracket when you take it out and pay the tax on it. That's a myth, definitely a myth, because the experience that people are having is, hey, if you're making $500,000 a year, you probably go down. But if you're making even $120,000, $150,000 a year, just had a couple came in, we helped them get started, and they need $150,000 a year still in retirement because they've got obligations and debt. Those obligations and debt are not going to go away. So, Mark, stay awake on me on this show. Stay awake. Don't quit your dreaming, okay?
All right. I'll stop drifting off into financial fantasy land.
I love it.
All right. One more, Tom, for financial myth busting. Financial planning today is much easier to do without professional help because of all the technology that's available.
Yeah, I think you can get your mind cluttered a lot. I have so many people that they love technology, they want to read, and two things happen. They either make a drastic mistake and they say, I read and read and read, and I still made a mistake on that. A lot of times it's with required minimum distributions and what you have to take out at a certain age, or it's how you take your Social Security. And unfortunately, that's a mistake once you make it. You've got a limited time of 1 year where you could undo it, but you pretty much have to live with that. They either make a drastic mistake, or they just get to the point where they come in, Mark, and they put all their stuff on our table and they said, here, build me a retirement blueprint. I'm tired of dealing with this and the time it takes. I want to enjoy my retirement, not become a financial advisor. So I would say that's pretty much a myth. Some people still like to do it yourself, but doing it yourself, it'll blow up on you if you're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tech that does make it a little easier, I suppose, but for the DIY side of things. But at some point, people go, yeah, this is a lot more complex than I want to deal with, or I just want to enjoy my retirement, to your point. So
the biggest thing is staying up with all the changes.
Yeah.
Just like we talked about earlier on the show, Required minimum distribution, 70 and a half, 72, 73, 75. What is it? They're changing the rules all the time. They make a rule change and you don't catch it. Guess what? They don't care.
They don't care. That's right. Well, 855-526-1600 is how you can get your complimentary written retirement blueprint with Tom and his team of All-Star Advisors. 855-526-1600. This is Ease Into Retirement. Stick around. We'll be back with more right after this. Back here for the fourth quarter of Ease Into Retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California. He's got 30-plus years of experience in the financial sector and a great team of all-star advisors and support staff here to help you with your retirement journey. So come on in for that complimentary written retirement blueprint of your very own at 855-526-1600. They've got 5 offices to help you out. They're in Anaheim, Arcadia, Encino, Ontario, and San Diego. And, of course, you can always do the Zoom meeting as well. So just reach out and get started today. No cost or obligation, so there's no reason not to pick up the phone and give them a jingle at 855-526-1600. All right, Tom, let's do some email questions to wrap up the show, as we've been doing here lately, like last couple of weeks. See if we can help some folks out around the area. Bob in Carlsbad says, I retired 3 years ago, but am considering opening a small business with a friend. And for me, it would help fill my days and hopefully, maybe later on, prove to be a good investment. I don't need the regular source of income, so do you think something like that's a good idea?
Let me hit you with several things, Bob. Number one, you look like you're in pretty much a financial, you can make a choice to do this or not to do this. In other words, you're not doing it because you need the money.
Right.
I would say make sure, number one, it's probably something a lot of people don't realize, but I've seen friendships split up over something like this. Make sure that your friend's commitment to this thing is just as much as yours, and the friend needs this new business just as little as you need it, it seems like, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to go into it where you're really clear. And I don't think it's probably the kind of thing necessarily, because it doesn't look like you might have employees or anything, but I don't think it's the kind of thing where you need to have like agreements drawn up, but you need to be real clear about expectations for the friend and you. Number two, it is something that really helps people fill their days, to give them something fulfilling. Sounds like you still got a motor that's running. And so you need to run that motor as long as you can. Later on, it'll prove to be a good investment, you said in the email. I like that, because you realize it's not going to make as much money as you think it's going to make, probably. Right off the bat, it's going to cost twice as much, take you twice as much time, and it's going to make you half as much on the income. But you say you don't need the income.
The regular,
so just,
yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't need it for your regular income. The one question is, what would your startup be, and what's your outlay to start the business? And is it something that you're investing in, or is it, once you lay that outlay, is it something you could never get back? Is it inventory, or what is it? So there's just, having my own businesses. I have an MBA from Pepperdine, where we really took businesses apart one way, up one way and down the other, to understand how businesses work. It's one reason people like to talk to me when they're starting a business like this. Bob, I'd love to talk to you personally about this situation if you're thinking about doing something like that. Not to tell you to do it or not, but just to be there and put some guardrails and some questions to make sure we keep you in line, and you don't turn around and say, that really sunk my retirement because I sunk so much money into it. You'll get into it if you're like a lot of people, and you'll face a decision. Do we withdraw from this thing and just take our losses, or do we put more money into it?
Yeah.
And that's a real crucial point in starting a business. I prefer my people to go enjoy their retirement, because starting a business, generally, it also takes twice as much time as you think it's going to take, and mental anguish and effort sometimes. So just be careful.
He says he's retired, Tom, already. I would say, when you brought up the question of where you're getting the funding from, like where, sometimes people, if they're thinking about getting to a business, what account are you pulling it from, right? So just be careful there as well, because you don't want to get hit with taxes or penalties if you're below 59.5 versus above it, so on and so forth, right?
Or also, Mark, the college campuses are famous for passing out in bulk almost credit cards to kids, and there are companies that are almost readily willing to give people who have no income in retirement loans. And you got to be really careful. You guys know, remember, just because you're retired doesn't mean if you take out a loan, you don't have to pay it back.
Yeah.
And it's gonna live with you whatever you do. So just be careful and make sure that you're not wanting to do something because you're bored. Maybe you go volunteer, because you did say in the email it would help fill my days.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So it looks like you're searching for something to do. You might try volunteering. It's a lot cheaper to get out of.
All right, let's do another email question here. Thank you so much, Bob, for the question. 855-526-1600. If you're in a similar boat and would like to get an analysis and a written retirement blueprint done, 855-526-1600. In the Torrance area, we got Carla, and she says, I am grateful to be in a financially stable position, Tom, as I approach my retirement. My sister, however, is not. While I sympathize with her, her financial state was definitely a product of her own decisions. A few months ago, she called and asked for some money, and so far I've said no. Is there a way I can help out a family member and clear my conscience, but also still maybe have a positive outcome? Hey, there's nothing wrong with thinking these things through. These interesting questions this week.
Yeah, and dangerous questions.
Yeah.
And with Bob in Carlsbad, be careful for the relationship with your friend. Carla, be careful for the relationship with your sister.
Indeed.
I think a bigger question mark is backing up Carla and asking the question, what makes you think something has changed with your sister that she's going to start making better decisions? Okay. In other words, if you give her X amount of dollars, and by the way, you need to be really clear and definitive. Is this a gift to your sister? If you go through with it, is this a gift to your sister or a loan to your sister?
Yeah, that might help with the conscience too, because at least if you do with a gift, you kind of don't expect it to come back.
Right.
Maybe.
No, really. And then, you can just sort of shake your hands. I'm wiping my hands right now, like I'm wiping them off, and say, there's the money. I'm giving it to my sister. Help with your conscience. Help with your sister, because sometimes people who make bad decisions are going to make a decision to guilt you. They're going to try to make you feel like you're being mean to them because you've been blessed. Carla, you've been blessed because you've made the right decisions, and you can see how your sister has not been blessed because she's made the wrong decisions. What's going to change with that? Be very careful. And I always think, and there are parents out there who are listening to what I'm saying right now, and you're thinking about giving your kids something because it's not your sister like it is with Carla, but it's your children. I think it's better if you are helping your married child or even your single child, don't give them the money, okay? Don't give them the money. When I see somebody that I really think is destitute and hungry on the street and they want money for food, and if there's a fast food restaurant there, I have before taken them in and bought them food. Okay, and giving them the food. Don't give them the money, because many times they'll go spend the money and waste the money and not spend the money wisely, if you understand. And your sister may be the same way. Your kids may be the same way. Say, how do I get around that? If your sister's got a credit card, if your kids are out there and they've got a credit card and they're willing to cut one of those credit cards up, then you pay it off. You pay that credit card up, let them cut that credit card up so they can't get themselves back in. What you're doing is you're filling the hole in, and you're handing them a shovel back and say, here, start digging again. Dig yourself another hole if they still have the credit card. So you've got to, it's an opportunity if you want to be instructive to your sister or help your sister learn, or if you're out there and you've got kids that are in the same situation, try to use it as a teaching moment to let them learn something to establish a different pattern. You say, does it work? Many times no, but at least you've made an effort. You've helped them. You've given them some money or loaned them some money or paid off something for them. It makes you feel better, but you've tried to help them get their life in track. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Well, Tom, there are some gifting, rules out there. If she did want to go that route, what is it, like 19 grand or something like that?
19 grand this year. You can give them legally and not have to pay any tax on that transaction.
So it could be one option if she does, choose to go through with it. But yeah, it's a great point. I mean, these are tough questions this week when you're dealing with relationships. Sometimes in loaning money or giving money, it can certainly be challenging. And as always, don't give more than you can afford, right? I think with investing in a business or whatever, like anything, it's only the percentage that you can afford to lose, right? In case you...
Right. And if not giving them the money ruins the relationship, it wasn't the money that ruined the relationship. The relationship wasn't there to start with, if you understand. And don't be guilted into doing it. Try to be a teaching. You've obviously learned a lot of things, Carla, in your life. Try to teach your sister something.
Yeah, be a good steward where you can. Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it this week for Ease Into Retirement. Thank you so much for your time, as always, hanging out with Tom and I as we talk investing, finance, and retirement. And again, if you need help, please get onto the calendar and get your written retirement blueprint underway. It's complimentary, no cost or obligation, so reach out to 855-526-1600 to get started today. 855-526-1600 to sit down with his team of all-star advisors and have a conversation about your retirement journey. 855-526-1600. For Tom Mosley, I'm your host, Mark Kelly, and we'll see you next time here on Ease Into Retirement.
Mosley Wealth Management is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management, Inc., MWM. Mosley Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership. License number 0K76766. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal, and any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Mosley Wealth Management, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mosley Wealth Management. This radio show is a paid placement.